one has helped me. Not one single person has helped me. And you, I don't know who you are, you're coming here and you're asking me, do I want to be made well? Like, are you all right? Obviously, I want to be made well. Do you want to lie here for 38 years? Like, he would be forgiven for reacting that way, but he didn't. And St. John Chrysostom talks about how when we go through certain trials and tribulations and God allows suffering, it humbles us. It kind of breaks us. I remember Abuna Krolos Frog from St. George Church, he explained it in a really beautiful way. He's like, when God allows you to go through something difficult and it breaks you, like it forces you, there's no room left for pride. You're so humbled by that situation that's going on. You're so aware of how much you need God and how powerless you are to fix this situation. There's like no more room left for pride. It's like squeezed out of you. And he explained it's kind of like you have tea and biscuits and you put the biscuit in the tea and you leave it there and it gets all mushy and it becomes very soft. And he's like, that's what happens when you're in something like this. You're really going through something and God's allowing it. You're like, the pride is gone because you've been broken by that situation. We actually become very soft and mushy, but that also means that we are so much more receptive to God. We're so much more receptive to His word. We're so much more receptive to changing things that we've been doing in our lives for a very long time. So sometimes these situations that break us, even if it's this 38-year-long suffering, it actually breaks us. It actually produces that humility. So there's no room left for pride. We'll play the video because there's a little thing that Father Mark explained. Like I said, this question is so deep and it's very beautiful. And we'll just start by watching this again. No, you're right. Come back to it. Do you want me to come back to it? Okay. All right, all good. In the meantime, I'll read you something that St. John Chrysostom wrote. This, if you want to look this up and read it properly, because it's really nice, it's called Homily number 23 that he wrote on 1 Corinthians. And he talks about how, like, if our eyes could see what was happening in the church, we would see that everyone is wounded, everyone has problems, everyone is, like, spiritually, everyone is sick. But he's saying, like, we shouldn't lose heart because God can heal. And he says, do not, however, despair on this account. For what if the wounds be severe, yet they are not incurable? Such is our physician. Only let us feel our wounds. Although we have arrived at very extreme of wickedness, many are the ways of safety which he strikes out for us. Although we have wandered away to that place, whether the sheep strayed from his keeper, even there he recovers us again if we're only willing. So it's really beautiful that he says, like, God can heal, only let us feel our wounds. Like, what is St. John Chrysostom saying? We'll come back to it, I think. No, you're right.
Well, we know that Christ will not ask the same question. Everything he asks would have a purpose, a profound purpose. What was the reason that Christ asked this man, do you want to be made well? When I was ordained a priest, sacrifices necessary? Do you realize that you give your life to others? Do you realize what you are embarking on? Are you ready, yes or no? And it's for that reason that Christ asked this man, do you want to be made well? Are you ready to be made well? You no longer get to lie here, day in, day out. You no longer will be able to rely on other people to feed you, to feel sorry for you. You're going to have to walk. Are you ready to stand? Are you ready to walk? Are you ready to carry your bed? Are you ready to work? Are you ready for all of these consequences and responsibilities that will come with healing? And the responsibility of the healing, the consequences of the healing comes to its climax when Christ finds him again and says, see, you have been made well, sin no more, lest the worst thing come upon you. Now you will need to stand, walk, work, carry your bed, and now you will need to sin no more.
Thanks, Andy. So I want to explain that much better than I ever could. But like we were saying, it's such a deep and beautiful question. When Christ asks this man and asks each and every one of us, do you want to be made well? What he's saying is the healing is not the problem. The healing is the easy part. I can do it like that. That's not the problem. Are you ready for the healing? Do you understand the responsibility of the healing? You spent 38 years living in one way. Once I heal you, your life's going to be completely different. There's no more lying here. There's no more relying on other people. You have to now, as the church fathers explain, the bed carried him and now he's going to carry the bed. It's a completely different life, a completely different responsibility. So are you ready for that? Are you ready? Like last week we discussed the Samaritan woman. She had this meeting with Christ. She left the water pots there and then, never turned back. Her life was completely different from that point on. And it's continuing this theme of Christ going and finding the one, traveling for the one person. And these really beautiful stories in the gospel that is obviously not just limited to the Samaritan woman, not just limited to the paralytic man, but each and every one of us, he's searching to find us. The bishop in Kenya, Amber Bullis, used to say, like, imagine on a Sunday that Christ is like walking through the church, he's looking like, who needs the healing? Who needs it? But like when he comes closer, we kind of hide and we don't want him to actually do the healing because that means I have to change. That means I have to let go of the stuff that I love, of what I've been used to doing for 38 years, for 60 years. There's a guy I met, he's older than me, and he used to be pretty much like in organized crime. And then he got like mentored by a priest, and the priest was helping him and like picking him up every day, taking him to church and doing all this kind of stuff and helping him to rehabilitate his life. And I remember this guy said to me, you know, like going to church and like going straight from what I used to do and like getting paid crazy amounts of money to do crazy stuff, you know, like, you know what it's like? It's like someone is Batman and you tell Batman, look, quit being Batman and now you're going to work a 9-to-5 job in an office. And it's like, he's like, I can't digest it. I can't, like, how do you want me to go from Batman to like this? And he couldn't like process and understand that change. And he had a few ups and downs. Thank God he's doing well now. But he had a few ups and downs for that reason. It's kind of like there's a weight of responsibility, like what we're so used to and what we love doing and what we're programmed to enjoy. When I accept that healing from Christ, there's a responsibility with that. I can't go and do what I used to be doing anymore. And that there's a weight there. There's something really to be accepted. There's something very significant to answer when Christ says, do you want to be made well? The healing is the easy part. There's a really beautiful Paschal sermon by St. Gregory the theologian, and this is the very end of it. He goes, we were put to death together with him that we might be cleansed. We rose again with him because we were put to death with him. We are glorified with him because he rose again with him. A few drops of blood recreate the whole creation. A few drops of blood recreate the whole creation. He's saying like the blood of Christ is so precious and so life-giving that a few drops of his blood can recreate all of creation, let alone all the blood that he shed on the cross for you and me. Like the healing is the easy part. He can make us a new person He can wash everything away. He can make us clean. He can give us a new beginning. He can do everything. He make us a new person. That's the easy part. But accepting that and accepting the responsibility that comes with that is very difficult. And what if I don't feel that I need that? And that's what the quote I was talking about before about St. John Chrysostom, where he says, only let us feel our wounds. Like, let me imagine like I had a massive like laceration, all like everyone can see it, and it's like festering and there's stuff living in there, and like it smells, and I'm just walking around as if nothing is there, and everyone's like, bro, is that guy gonna get that fixed, or like there's actually worms coming out of his arm? And like, imagine I was just living my life like not realizing anything's there. And St. John Chrysostom saying like, let us feel our wounds. Let me understand that I'm actually spiritually I'm sick and I'm in need of his healing. And I've been doing this thing for 38 years, or I have this negativity about who God is and what he's going to do in my life that I can't shake. I have this judgment of others that I can't fix it. I can't help it. I see them, I judge them straight away. Like, we have to realize that there is in each of us something wounded there that we are always going to be in need of his healing every single day. It's a continual process. But the healing is the easy part. It's just accepting the responsibility of it and realizing that I'm actually in need of it. And the beauty is there when the heartbreaking statement when he says, I have no man. Now Christ is that man for each and every one of us. There's now like this perfect hope, and like he's big enough and he's strong enough to pull us out of every situation. Can someone read now from verse 10 to 15, please?
The Jews therefore said to him who was cured, It is the Sabbath. It is not lawful for you to carry your bed. He answered them, He who made me well said to me, Take up your bed and walk. Then they asked him, Who is the man who said to you, Take up your bed and walk? But the one who was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn, a multitude being in that place. Afterward Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, See, you have been made well. Sin no more, lest the worst thing come upon you. The man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well.
Beautiful. So it's a bit scary because, like, why is Jesus saying that? Why is someone say something? Yeah, why is he saying to him, sin no more, lest the worst thing come upon you? The worst thing come upon you. Mm. Yeah. That's deep. That's good. That's very good. Someone else jump in. I'm going to force you guys to talk. This side, someone talk. Someone's going to talk. we got all night. Why did Jesus say that to him? You tell me. Is it another 38 years? Someone. Ladies, stop hiding. Surely someone has something to add. Surely. Why did Jesus say that to him? See that you've been made well, sin no more lest the worst thing come upon you. Why did he say that to him?
I might be wrong.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm not usually wrong, but
Very humble as well.
It's a lot worse to have. It's a lot worse to walk around and have no God than to be paralyzed and have God with you. So the worst thing is not having God with you.
I have to think about that.
Yeah.
That's very good. But I'm looking for something different. Someone. Don't make eye contact because then you. Anyone. Yeah, I think that's true. Like the church fathers say, like there's far worse than 38 years with this ailment, which is basically hell. So that's true. But like think simpler. Why did Jesus say this to him? Consequence of sin? Yep, 100%. But which is true because like this is actually, I think the only other exception is the man with leprosy in his hand that Jesus actually specified about the sin being associated with the sickness. And in the Old Testament, the Jewish understanding, there was a big link there, which is why the man who was born blind, the disciples asked Jesus, so who stuffed up? Who sinned? This guy or his parents that he was born? Like surely someone sinned. So who was it? There was a big link between sin and disease as a consequence. But that's obviously we know that's not necessarily always the case because like Jesus said about that man, no one but that God may be glorified. But I think the very simple level is that Jesus said it to him because it's possible to go back. Like it's possible that you could be suffering for 38 years and God can come and do something dramatic and heal you and make you a new person. And it's actually possible to go back. It is possible. So he's giving him a warning. He's saying, be careful. Be careful lest the worst thing come upon you. Don't go backwards now. That you endured and you are to be praised for the way that you endured. If you Google St. John Chrysostom's homily on the paralytic, I really encourage you to go and read it. It's very, very beautiful. And he praises this man for his perseverance for 38 years. Because, again, logically, you think about it, it's not his fault. Like, what could he have done? He physically couldn't have put himself in the pool. So, like, he's to be praised for his perseverance. But Christ is giving him and us a warning that just be careful. It's actually possible to go back. In the same way that you have to accept the healing, you have to continue in that. You can't just now relax or forget about the beautiful things that I have done in your life. You have to remember that. You have to stir it up. You have to remember how I was with you in the good times, the bad times, all that kind of stuff. So it's really, it's like the verse in 1 Corinthians, St. Paul says, let those who think that they stand take heed lest they fall. Like you think you're good, you think you're solid, you think it's actually been ages since I've done anything crazy and I have to tell Abuna like I'm doing all right. Just be careful. Like if you think that you're okay, you're in danger. Like we should always have that humility and always ask for the grace of God to protect us. One of my favorite verses in Proverbs 26 says that as a dog returns to his own vomit, so a fool returns to his folly. Does anyone have a dog here? Anyone have a dog that has eaten its own vomit at some point? I only saw it like when my dog was a puppy. I've got a German Shepherd, and when she was a puppy and she would get car sick, occasionally she'd eat it, and I was like, that is gross. Like that's actually disgusting. So you see this verse, like it's a real thing. Like dogs actually do that. But one of the church fathers explained the meaning of it is that like when the dog is sick and actually vomits, like they're in a lot of pain. Their stomach hurts. Like it's not, obviously it's not a pleasant thing. But then once the pain is gone, you kind of forget about it. You're like, and then you just start eating it again. Like, and they're saying like that same thing that made you sick, you eat it again. It's like when we're going through it and we've sinned and we've fallen and we feel so ashamed and we feel terrible and blah, 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 blah. It's, but then like once we go to Abuna, have Holy Communion, everything's fine. And then you kind of forget about it. That thing that caused me so much pain, I forget about the pain and I go and eat it again. And like it's such a practical understanding. But if that wasn't a possibility, if it wasn't possible for us to go backwards, Christ would not have given him this warning, saying, be careful. Remember the 38 years. Remember how I came and I found you. And I asked you, do you want to be made well? And I changed your whole life. And now you're carrying your bed and you've assumed this responsibility. Don't go backwards, lest a worse thing come upon you. And as you guys said, there's definitely something worse than another 38 years or going through the same thing again. And sometimes it's kind of crazy because I think a lot of us have some very beautiful stories where God has really intervened in our lives and done something big to correct us, even if it hurts, like to bring us back on track. And like, we remember it, right? But it's actually very easy to forget it, and it's very easy to go backwards. So again, everything that Christ says is so powerful and is so meaningful. Now he's saying to us, be careful. You see that you've been made well. See what I did in your life. Don't go backwards, lest a worse thing come upon you. Don't go backwards. We'll go to verse 16 through to 30.
For this reason the Jews persecuted Jesus and sought to kill him, because he had done these things on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered them, My Father has been working until now, and I have been working. Therefore the Jews sought all the more to kill him, because he not only broke the Sabbath, but also said that God was his Father, making himself equal with God. Then Jesus answered and said to them, Most assuredly I say to you, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he sees the Father do, for whatever he does, the Son also does in like manner. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all things that he himself does, and he will show him greater works than these, that you may marvel. For as the Father raises the dead and gives life to them, even so the Son gives life to whom he will. For the Father judges no one, but has committed all judgments to the Son. Sorry, continuing?
Yeah, just go up to verse 30.
That all should honor the Son, just as they honor the Father. He who does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him. Most assuredly I say to you, he who hears my word and believes in him who sent me has everlasting life, and shall not come into judgment, but has passed from death into life. Most assuredly I say to you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead will hear the voice of the Son of God, and those who hear will live. For as the Father has life in himself, so he has granted the Son to have life in himself, and has given him authority to execute judgment also, because he is the Son of Man. Do not marvel at this, for the hour is coming in which all who are in the graves will hear his voice, and come forth, those who have done good to the resurrection of life, and those who have done evil to the resurrection of condemnation. I can of myself do nothing. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is righteous, because I do not seek my own will, but the will of the Father who sent me.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. So it's these are very, I think, very theologically heavy verses, but they're also very useful for us and very beautiful because I remember back in uni days, and you'd get into these like debates with someone from the Muslim society or someone from wherever, and they'd be like, nah, like show me where Jesus ever claimed to be God. And like if we don't read, like that question can throw us, and we can be like, oh my God, I can't do anything like outside of the Father and all this, and they'll try and throw these verses here and there. So it's important to understand what's happening. And the Gospel of John is beautiful for that. So many powerful. I think it's in chapter 10 where Christ explicitly says, "My Father and I are one," and there was no mincing of words. Like it even says here that once he'd said that, they sought to kill him because they understood very clearly what he's saying. He's making himself equal with the Father. And we know, like, without getting beyond my pay grade, because it is definitely beyond my pay grade, that is the three hypostases of the Trinity, but the one essence, the one divine essence. And they can't be separated, but they're distinct in their personhood. The Son is not, the Holy Spirit is not the Father, but they are of one essence, and they are perfectly united. And I think it's in John chapter 17, where it's kind of like we're like this fly on the wall, hearing this prayer from the Son to the Father, hearing this conversation, and it's like perfectly, and that's where Christ says, make them all one like you and I are one. Let them all be united as you and I are perfectly united. And he talks about how every one of them that you gave me, I haven't lost a single one, except for Judas, but that's a different story. So I'll just read you something small from St. Cyril of Alexandria, where he explains that, and he's focusing on when Christ is talking about those who are in the graves will hear the voice and the resurrection. He's saying, see again these words, clear proof of his equality. For how can he be inferior in anything if he works equally in the reviving of the dead? Or how can he be of another nature and alien to the Father when he is radiant with the same properties? For the power of resurrection, which is alike in both the Father and the Son, is a property of the divine essence. But it is not as though the Father separately and of himself resurrects some, and the Son separately and apart from the Father resurrects others. For since the Son has in himself by nature the Father does everything and works all things through the Son. And it keeps going. And it's, as I said, way beyond my pay grade. But it's very important for us to understand, even just from the sense of like an apologetic understanding of knowing in ourselves actually that, yes, Christ did obviously claim to be God, and obviously that is all throughout the Gospels. And it's very interesting. Everything back from the Old Testament back to the very beginning, the Trinity is at work. Like the very first words in the Gospel of Genesis, and talks about the Holy Spirit was hovering over the waters. Like the Trinity is there and present. And obviously we just celebrated the Feast of the Epiphany, and we see again like the Trinity, like God revealing himself in that way. So it's important for us to understand. And there are statements that would have been so inflammatory to the people back then, like going back to verse 17. My Father has been working until now, and I have been working. Like the very, very clear, direct claims in the previous chapter when with the Samaritan woman and the disciples come and they're like, are you hungry? Have you eaten? And Jesus says, I've already eaten. They're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, my food is to do the will of my Father, to do the work of my Father. So they're very consistent all throughout the Gospels, all throughout the Bible. The Trinitarian nature of God is there present for us. Not that we can ever understand it because it's a mystery, but it's there for us to understand. And it's very beautiful that Christ is giving this, and that's always a message of hope for us as Christians, that we don't mourn for our loved ones the way that people, as St. Paul talks about, the way that those that don't have the faith would. The hour is coming now is when the dead will hear the voice of the Son of God, and those who hear will live. It's a beautiful promise. It's a beautiful promise. Like we're no longer afraid of death. We don't regard death in the same way. Can someone read verse 31 to the end of the chapter? Or you can split it up.
If I bear witness of myself, my witness is not true. There is another who bears witness of me, and I know that the witness which he witnesses of me is true. You have sent to John, and he has borne witness to the truth. Yet I do not receive testimony from man, but I say these things that you may be saved. He was the burning and shining lamp, and you were willing for a time to rejoice in his light. But I have a greater witness than John's, for the works which the Father has given me to finish, the very works that I do, bear witness of me that the Father has sent me. And the Father himself who sent me has testified of me. You have neither heard his voice at any time nor seen his form, but you do not have his word abiding in you, because whom he sent, him you do not believe. You search the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, and these are they which testify of me. But you are not willing to come to me that you may have life. I do not receive honor from men, but I know you, that you do not have the love of God in you. I have come in my Father's name, and you do not receive me. If another comes in his own name, him you will receive. How can you believe who receive honor from one another, and do not seek the honor that comes from the only God? Do not think that I shall accuse you to the Father. There is one who accuses you, Moses, in whom you trust. For if you believed Moses, you would have believed me, for he wrote about me. But if you do not believe his writings, how will you believe my words?
Thank you. So Jesus is like perfectly, he's just smashing them. Honestly, he's just smashing them. And the heading there in the Bible, which is obviously added in, is the fourfold witness. And what's a fourfold witness? Christ is saying, I'm not bearing witness of myself. I'm not just coming here and saying that, I have this authority and you have to believe me because of this authority. But there is another bear witness of it. So John the Baptist, who they recognized, bear witness of Christ. And obviously very famously said, this is the one that I told you was coming. This is the one that I'm not worthy to stoop down and loosen his sandals. He's the one that's preferred before me. Then he's saying the Father himself, as we were talking about in the theophany, the Father himself testifies, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. The works that Christ does themselves testify of him and also testify of his divinity. Because going back to that same concept, there were some things that Christ is doing that were purely the prerogative of the Messiah. Like when in all the prophecies in Isaiah that talks about opening the eyes of the blind and that the lame will walk and raising the dead. These were things that were like but this is stuff that the Messiah would do. No one else would be doing these types of things. Even the way that he did it, when he took the clay and with the spittle and formed eyes for the blind man. It's the same God who created the eyes in the first place. He's like the works that he's doing and forgiving the sins. Saying, what's greater? I tell this guy to get up and walk, or I say his sins are forgiven. Obviously, only God can. So, like the works themselves testify. And then finally, he's kind of hitting them where it hurts, because he's like, even Moses, that you say is your father and the great arch prophet and all this stuff, he accuses you because he talked about me. And he told you that I was coming. And he's a type of me. So if you don't believe him, then, you obviously have missed the entire point. And obviously it's much deeper than that, because if Moses spoke and prefigured Christ, then all of the prophets spoke of and prefigured Christ. And that's exactly what he's saying, that even these writings that you claim to know inside, and you do know inside out, all of them speak of me. All of them reveal me. I'm the perfect fulfillment of all of these things. So it's very fascinating seeing how Christ deal with them and explain to them, and seeing how like everything lines up, like all the prophecies, all the symbolism, all the promises, everything perfectly lines up in such a mind-blowing way. And sometimes we get lost in thinking, yeah, Jesus told them off, Jesus smashed them. But these statements, again, are for us also. And it's scary. If we go back to verse 42. But I know you, that you do not have the love of God in you. It's scary if I hold that up as the standard, or if I could hear the voice of God giving me an honest assessment of what's in my heart, he's probably going to say the same thing to me. I know you, that you don't have the love of God in you. You are way below that standard of what I'm calling you to, and how you should be loving others the way that I love you. Verse 40, but you are not willing to come to me that you may have life. And it goes back to what Edna was saying about this paralytic man, and do you want to be made well? Like, he's there looking. He wants to heal each and every one of us. He wants to have this interaction with each and every one of us, but we're hiding. We don't want that. Like he actually, the way he explained it is like, there are some people, they don't like to be clean. They don't like to have like a white sheet. Like God heals them and gives them a fresh start, and they're like, nah, I'm going to splatter some stuff all over that again. Like they just, like he's explaining, sometimes we are inexplainably, like we're just reluctant to live the way that God is calling us to do. There's that inner warfare, and like obviously it's not unique to any one of us. St. Paul himself said, the things that I want to do, I don't do. And the things that I hate, I'm doing those. Like who's going to deliver me from this body of death? Like there's really a warfare going on. Like there's a big struggle, and sometimes it's so paradoxical. Like we can't even get over it. We're stumbling over our own feet. And that's all the more reason why we need to, as St. John Chrysostom said, feel our wounds, recognize like, I really am in need of healing. And like, Lord, come and visit me, come and stop by me and give me this healing, because I'm in special need of it. Yeah, you came for everyone and you're going to heal everyone, but please make sure you stop and stand next to me, because I need that. I need you to come and place your hand on me and heal me, so I can, be living the way that you want me to live. We'll stop there. Please, someone add something or ask something, or no, you follow your heart, man. Do you want this one? I don't know how it's.
No, I was going to say, like, when you're speaking about verse 42, when you say, but I know you, but you do not have the love of God in you, because obviously he was speaking to the Pharisees and all that. So these people, like, the context is they were very, like, strict. They had the laws, they had everything, and they were so focus on that they forgot the real meaning of
Yeah.
why God was giving it to them in the first place. And I think that's the message for us, is that even if we do things like we have the schedule, we go to the church, we do like fasting, we do all these stuff, we have to remember like the true reason why God set us on this path is basically to be the light of God to the world. And basically that's why like he basically shortened the commandments to two, to love your neighbor as you love yourself and love your God with all your heart, strength and might. Because with all these other laws, they weren't necessary. If you follow those two, then you wouldn't be willing to do everything else. So I think like that's like it's a very good line, especially since it targets us, and it's something that Christ is not afraid to say. And even with us, we must not be afraid to look within ourselves and see, okay, maybe, okay, I'm doing these things, but okay, like, is there things that like God like wants me to do more? Like, is there anything more I can do? And maybe if I'm like judgmental, maybe I could look within myself. Or like if I've sinned, maybe there's like obviously there's always ample opportunity to do something to help yourself. But I think like the main thing Christ came for is because he loves us, and we must obviously show that love that Christ gave to everyone else. And I think this says in Matthew, whatever you do to the least of my people, you do to me. So he basically just wants us to live as close to him as possible, not for his sake, but for ours.
Thanks, Al.
So, sounds very nice when God says, or Jesus says, I'm equal with God. Okay. But then when you read it, it sounds like he's separating the two. Okay, for example, just after they accused him for making him equal with God, he said, most surely I say to you, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he sees the Father do. Whatever he does, the Son also does in like manner. That's in verse 19.
Yeah.
In verse 22, he says that the Father judges no one, but has committed all judgment to the Son. And like another example is in verse 30, he says, I can do nothing of myself.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like he's separating the two. So why is he putting it in this way? Because there's so much confusion about God and Jesus and Holy Spirit being the same. But when you read it, you're like, oh, well, is that the same? Is that not the same?
Yeah. Beyond my pay grade. Does anyone have answer or something they want to share on that? I think the safest way is to go to the church fathers, and they explain it really like these guys in the 4th, 5th century that filled with the Holy Spirit can explain. Like they were the ones, like Saint Cyril of Alexandria, for example. Like his writings on the Holy Spirit instructed all of Christianity at that time. So it's like, we need to go to them. Or Saint Athanasius, like on the Incarnation, like understanding how can God take on flesh, or why did he need to take on flesh? Why did he need to die? Why did that death need to be the cross? Like all of these things are explained. But I think one thing is like we were saying, in the persons of the Trinity, they are distinct, and they kind of have. Not that they perform different. Like we can't talk about like the Trinity the way that we're going to just talk about anything. But if I can dare to use the word, like they have different functions or roles, but it's just perfectly, you know what I mean? Like in a way that we can't understand. But as the Son, he puts himself as, like, don't forget, like the reason for the Son of God's incarnation was to be the suffering servant in Isaiah 53. And if we go to like the Christological hymn, Philippians 2, St. Paul explains it perfectly. Let this mind be in you, which also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, did not consider it to robbery to be equal with God. Equal in the divine essence. The one essence is God. The essence is the same. But made himself of no reputation, taking the form of a bondservant and coming in the likeness of men. So it's emptying himself of the divine glory and taking that form as the bondservant, as the suffering servant, as the one who took on flesh for our salvation. In that sense, he's the servant. So he's put himself subservient to the Father. And that's why I think it's in Mark, or where he says that hour even the Son doesn't know, but only the Father knows. Like, is it possible that the Son of God, the second person of the Trinity, doesn't know when the end of the earth will be? Like, I don't think we can say that, but he's like, you know what I mean? It's almost like hyperbole. the same way saying that I can do nothing of myself, like it's because they perfectly share the same essence, they perfectly share the same will. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, like 100%. You know what I mean? Like they're doing the same. Like my father's been working, I have been working. It's that thing. Like they can't be separate. It's almost like hyperbole, like really exaggerating the point. If that I don't think that answered your question at all. Bottom line is read the ancient church fathers because that's like the best way to try and understand these things that are like way beyond us, way beyond us.
No, you did it. Excellent.
Anyone else? Something to add? Do you want the?
Okay, say for instance you resonate with that verse, which was 42. You don't have the love of God in your heart. How do you fix that?
How do you fix that? That's a good question. I think the beautiful thing is that in the same way of His healing, God is like more than willing, like He's so eager to bless us. He's so eager to fill us. Like I think I don't know where it is in the Psalms. It says like, open your mouth and be filled with good things. Like He's so, and when Christ says in the Beatitudes, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Like really the only issue is us to be hungry, is us. St. Maximus talks about like receptive capacity. Like you will receive the gifts of the Holy Spirit according to your ability to receive. It's not that, like that's the only limiting factor, if that makes sense. So He's ready to pour out His riches, which are endless. There's no cap to the blessings that God can give us, the insights that He can give us, the wisdom, the depth of enjoying even just the Bible. Like there are some people that have spent their whole lives sitting at the feet of Christ, like feeding from the Bible. Like for them, it's different. It's not like, oh, I got to go to Bible study. I have to do my quiet time. I haven't opened my Bible into like, for them, it's like I open and I'm feeding, like I'm eating, like I'm receiving His message for me today. I'm receiving power for me today. So really, I think if we are hungry, if we are intentional, if we ask Him, He will fill us. Like that's not the problem. He's more than willing. Like He's so happy. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it's in Luke where Jesus says, "Be of good cheer, little flock. It's your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. I'm so happy to give you the kingdom." What's the kingdom? The kingdom is where the King is. The kingdom is His presence. I'm so happy to fill you with that now. I'm so happy for you to start living heaven now, which is what all the great saints in our church did. They understood and they were so eager to leave the whole world behind and leave themselves behind because they were just completely focused on that. But it's so hard. Like there's so many things to distract us. There's so many things to weigh us down. There's so many things that the devil would love us to think, I don't deserve this, I'm whatever. Like there's a million different obstacles, but the solution is always so simple. And one of my favorite verses is in Luke chapter 10, Mary and Martha, and Jesus says to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things, but one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen that good part. Like the one thing that is actually necessary is to sit at my feet and receive from me. You are worried and troubled about many things. Like if we put our names there, like Andrew, you are worried and troubled about many things. There are so many things that are stressing you out right now and pulling at you and taking your attention and like breaking your heart. But there's one thing that's needed. It's just sit here. Let me fill you. Let me give you peace. Let me console you. I think it's in Zephaniah, it says, let me quieten you with my love. Like imagine the bridegroom, Christ the bridegroom, quietening us, like consoling us with His love. But we're not going to feel that if we don't give Him the opportunity to work. We don't give Him the space. So like that's what the bishop in Kenya always says, like our problem is that we don't know how to receive. It's not that just sit and let Him, like when He fed the 5,000, He made them sit. Like you can't, I remember in kindy they'd always say like don't eat while you're walking around and stuff like that because I don't know, you'll choke or something. But like we can't, like you have to sit. You have to stop everything else and just sit, and then He will fill us. Like that makes Him so happy. That is what He wants us to be asking for in prayer. Someone else? Anyone else? Anything else to share? Glory be to God.
Thanks again to David, taking us through John chapter 5. Thank you, David. That was really insightful. In terms of announcements, there's a few today. Food is outside the youth kitchen. There's upcoming youth camp on Friday to Monday, the public holiday. Those who are paid and those who are in the group chat, the schedule will be coming soon, and then there'll be more announcements in terms of buses and kind of the outline of what we're going to be doing over those 3 days coming in the next day or two in that group chat. In terms of other announcements, there's also the new library that's opening up in the new building, the new Habib Gugus library, and they're after donations. So there's going to be posters going up around soon, and that's whether if you have a spiritual book, particularly for children, if you have anything that's for the younger ages, that's in good condition. Speak to your senior Amanios. Alternatively, as well, if you'd like to make a financial donation to them, buying books and buying activities and things to put in the library, speak to your senior as well, and she'll be able to kind of direct you into the right direction for it. I think that's all for announcements today. So if everyone's ready, can you stand up for prayer?
Father, Son, Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Heavenly Father, thank you.